Yeah, I haven't made a video in a while, so here we go. I'm going to make a video. I'm going to change the oil in the old Bel Air and get it ready for winter. And I haven't had it out in a while. It's just been sitting here collecting dust. So I'm going to take my California car duster here and clean some of the dust off the car from being parked in the garage, not being moved. This is the easiest way. Just give it a quick dust off. These things work pretty good. I'm pretty happy with them. Just saves taking the car out and washing it every time I want to. If it's just dusty, if it's dirty, yeah, you'll scratch the paint, but it's not. It just hasn't been driven in 3 weeks. So anyway, I'm going to dust it off and then we'll get it cranked up and go for a little ride. This will be a true cold start too, because it's only, well, it was down in the 40s last night. It's only 50 out right now, and I have not turned the heat on in the garage yet. And I went up north to the cottage and spent some time up there, so that's one of the reasons why there's been no videos. And since last year when I gave up that storage unit that I kept one of the cars in because they raised the rates $1,000 a year, I've been looking for a house to buy to rent out to use the garage. Well, this past few weeks I bought a house too, and the price was right on it. The garage needs some work, so no, I'm not going to be using the garage right away. I may even have to have the garage torn down and build a new one. We'll see, but the garage definitely needs some work. The roof doesn't leak, but it definitely needs some work. But anyway, I'll deal with that at a later time. I got to clean the gutters, do a few things like that. The house is in really nice shape. It's new furnace, new water heater, the roof was 18, the furnace and water heater about 6 years old, the washer and dryer about 6. Came with all the appliances. Has a tenant in it. Tenant's been there for 8 years. One of the requests in the sale was that I could keep the tenant if he didn't want to move, and he didn't want to move because when I went to look at the house, they requested shoes off, and the house was really clean and really nice looking place. It was one of the nicest looking houses on the street, and that's the kind of tenant you want. So he's staying, and we'll work out something. Maybe I'll give him a little break on the rent or something. And he doesn't really use the garage for anything but his lawnmower, so I might be able to use it for winter storage for when I do project cars in here. But anyway, while I was up north, that's enough of that. And I haven't ridden this either because it's just been kind of cold and crummy. But I went up north, and the problem here was this wouldn't start because the carburetor was gummed up. Went to mow and it wouldn't start. The pickup tube, this sat up in the garage here for about 3 years with gas in it after it got broken, and before I got a chance to restore it. And I cleaned the tank and gave it a quick clean. The tank's in good shape, no rust or anything in it, but I didn't clean the pickup tube to the carburetor. And I took the carburetor off and cleaned it. It was like a bluish green goo in there. I think maybe my dad might have put 2-cycle gas in it, and maybe that's all he had. These will run fine on 2-cycle gas. It's no big deal. But anyway, I think it gummed up the pickup tube. I got the pickup tube cleaned out, and it fired right up and ran good. But my brother bought a battery mower for up there, because our problem is we don't go up there. When my dad lived a mile away, he would take this between the two places and mow it both places, so it always ran good because it was run, a couple times a month. He would take about 3 days to mow the grass around his place, do about a half an hour each day, and so it got used enough to where it stayed running. Well, since my dad's passed and we don't need to do that anymore, we use it once or twice a year, and it just gummed up. And it's kind of a pain when you go up there to enjoy yourself to spend your time cleaning carburetors on trimmers and blowers and lawnmowers and whatever that's not used often. So we're just switching out the battery stuff. We went with a battery chainsaw years and years ago, and we still have the gas one, and surprisingly when we went to use it while I was up there, it started right up. I was blown away. I didn't think it would start. been, you know, several years since it been started, but it fired right up. But anyway, this wouldn't start, so we bought a battery mower. My brother picked one up on Amazon cheap. It's a Green Machine, I think. And he got the mower, blower, and trimmer as a package. And it's not like the one you'd buy in the mower shop. It's a cheaper version. It's I think a 19-inch, no power drive or anything. It's a mower row basic like this. This is just was dandy up there at the cottage. But like I say, you know, we're dealing with gasoline engines that aren't running enough. So that's why I brought the mower home. So anyway, let's get the Bel Air going. I'm going to run to the auto parts and get some oil. I'm going to try and buy some oil with zinc in it. I usually use like Valvoline 1040 in this, and 1040 is hard to get. This car has over 200,000 miles now, so I like to run the thicker 1040 oil. If it was, you know, if I rebuild the engine, I'll go with 1030, but finding oils with zincs in 1040, finding 1040 is hard, let alone oils with zinc. And I think the reason why a lot of the thicker oils are being phased out, because it does reduce fuel economy a little bit. The thicker oil, you know, they get a little better economy. That's why a lot of the vehicles say to use, you know, 520 or these thin oils. And I got to change oil in the truck, which you obviously see isn't in here right now. It's being borrowed, but I picked up oil for the truck. It's been a year since it's had an oil change, and this is what I use in the truck. I'm not going to show changing oil in the truck. And I got an oil filter for it, and I got one for the Chevy too. I just got to get the oil. So we'll go get some oil and maybe do the fall maintenance on it for the season. I don't think I'll be driving it that much anymore, and if I do, one or two little runs isn't going to hurt the car. I just want to get the summer cruising oil out. It's got maybe, I don't know, I'll look and see, and we'll put that in the video later, how many miles it's got on the oil change, maybe 1,000. I didn't drive the car a horrible lot this year because of the ultra high cost of gasoline. You know, this car requires minimum 91 octane, or it spark knocks if I put 89 in it, and if I retard the timing, it temperature creeps up and then it starts spark knocking worse. So I find just running the timing where it's supposed to be in the 91 octane, it runs its best, and don't have spark knocks. So anyway, we'll see. Like I say, it's been 3 weeks, so it might not have any gas in the float bowl. Once to the floor, we'll see what happens. And like I say, it's a cold day out. Yeah, it'll still squeal a bell decelerating it. So there we go. Alright, let me turn the radio down here. It looks like my clock stopped again. The clock hasn't been winding properly. I think the contacts are going bad in it. I'll have to look into that this winter. And, you know, that's why I'm not going to be having a winter project this year. I spent my car hobby money buying a house. I paid cash for the house, so I didn't have to finance it. You know, the mortgage rate's gone up. They're still low. I mean, you know, under 6% is still a low mortgage rate, but, you know, why pay a mortgage if you don't have to? So anyway, this is what's going to get to work this winter. I'm going to do some things I've been putting off on it for decades. I have all this trim, new old stock. This is not reproduced, so I'm going to change that, and I want to paint underneath where the trim is here. I think I did on the hood. I don't think I did here. I don't think I've ever taken this trim off since I've owned the car. But anyway, I got all this new old stock, so I'm going to replace all that, and I'd like to reupholster the seats back to original. I don't know if I'll be able to do that this year or not, but there's a few other odds and ends. This rocker panel keeps, the molding keeps popping loose. I'm going to pop it off and see what I need to do with the clips to keep them from popping loose. And but other than that, it still runs and drives pretty good. I was going to overhaul the engine, but I think I'll wait until maybe next year to do that. I just gotta kind of watch my budget after blowing my my car hobby money and spending it on a house. I mean, you know, I was earning like, you know, less than 20 cents a month in interest at the bank. And, you know, so anything I earn over 20 cents is a bonus. And I wasn't really touching the money. It was just sitting in the bank. So it's no different if it's invested in a house or sitting in the bank. Just get a bigger return now. So, you know, I mean, after I pay the taxes and insurance and everything, it's going to be a pretty decent return. So that's why I decided, you know, I would go with renting a house and seeing about using the garage as opposed to renting another storage unit. Anyway, on with the video now. I'm rambling on here. Still have a cold engine. I set the clock and it's actually working now, but I turned the heat on. It's cold enough to where it's nice to have the heat. The red light here has been burnt out for probably 3 weeks. I wonder why they haven't replaced it. But anyway, we'll get going here once the light change. Here we go. Still have a slightly cold engine. Runs pretty good. You know, the radio's on. Oh, it's just barely, the volume's just barely on. I'll have to turn it off so I don't end up with some copyright thing. Anyway, off the auto parts, we'll get some motor oil. I had to open the window. It's getting warm in here with the heat. Anyway, we'll get the oil changed and just go for a short ride after I change the oil too. Just circulate it all through everything. Well, the radio's still probably picking up on there. I like to make sure the engine's good and warm before I change the oil. The oil's all stirred up and thin and it drains out quick. And it's been, I don't know, I drove it about 10-12 miles. I went to 3 different auto parts looking for oil with zinc. Valvoline makes an oil, Lucas makes an oil with zinc. Nobody had it. You think here in the, you know, with Woodward and all the old cars and everything, somebody would stock it, but they don't. So anyway, I got this in a 1040 even, you know. I mean, 1040 is hard to find. You can find 1030, 530, 030, 520, 020. But anyway, because of the high mileage, I wanted 1040, and I got this as the zinc additives for the flat tappet camshaft. So alright, let me get my drain pan out and get some tools, and I'll start draining the oil out. So I think it's been running plenty long to warm up properly. You can see the temperature gauge there. Alright, let me get the oil draining. And I'm not going to video that because I don't want to get oil all over my camera. Well, I don't know if you can see the oil draining out there or not, but anyway, it's not really that nasty. It's hot. I had to wipe my fingers off. So there you can kind of see what it looks like there. But yeah, the oil's still pretty warm, and I don't want to handle my camera with that hand now, so I'm going to have to try and struggle to get up. And I'm going to grease all there's fitting here on the power steering spool valve. This is the spool valve for the power steering, the slave cylinder. You can see where that oil pan gasket seal leaks on the kind of there. See where the timing cover and the oil pan meet? It leaks there, and it leaks where the oil pan, that same rubber seal is on the rear where the oil pan meets the rear main bearing cap, and it seeps there too. It's just a common thing when these engines get old. That rubber is probably so brittle and cracked. You can see grease on the tie rod end. There's some grease fitting on the slave cylinder and the tie rod ends and ball joints and whatnot. So we'll get everything all greased up under here too, and that's part of doing the maintenance. And then I give it a quick grease in the spring because the oils seep out of the grease and leave the waxes. But I grease the chassis mid-season. That's why there's grease coming out of the fittings. I grease it like every 1,000 miles or so, but mid-season I like to give it a quickie grease. Well, if that shows up, you can see I got a lever lock on my grease gun tip. That just makes greasing easier, and you can see this boot here will inflate as I pump grease in it. I usually put 3 pumps in the ball joints, 2 in the tie rod ends, and 1 in the power steering spool valve. And the reason why I only do 1 in the power steering spool valve is if you over grease it, it'll pull until that extra grease where it gets out of the joint. So anyway, let's put some grease in it. Can you see that thing inflate? Now you can see a little grease oozing out right there. And that's all I do. And then you just push this thing and that lever lock comes off. And I can move it over to the tie rod end. It just makes life easier when you have these things. See, I can't pull it off unless you squeeze this. And it doesn't automatically just fall off when you go to grease fittings. So that's all I'm going to put in that is 2, and it did ooze out a little bit right there. So there's the grease fitting upper ball joint, lower ball joint, tie rod end outer, tie rod end inner, both sides, the slave cylinder on the power steering, the spool valve on the power steering, and there's one on the bell crank for the clutch. So I'll give that a quick grease. I'm not going to video that. That's tucked way back up in there. It's kind of got to jack the car up to get to that, and I'm going to go in and have lunch, and then I'll do that. And the oil's pretty much all just a drip every here and there now. So when I get back from lunch, I'll put the drain plug back in and refill the salt. One advantage to leaving things greasy, look at that when you wipe it off. Just cleans right up. It just protects it, that greasy stuff. So that's why I just don't pressure wash them, especially this time of year. That grease protects stuff from corrosion over the winter, from condensation. You know, you get cold weather and then you get a warm day and things tend to condensate and causes rust where the condensation is. So I just leave it dirty and greasy, and then in the spring is usually when I clean them up. I haven't cleaned this car up, the engine or any of the undercarriage or drivetrain, in about 3 or 4 years now, so it desperately needs it. Wipe that extra grease off there and there so it doesn't get on things, but I leave the little bit of the grease on the fitting. It protects them so that they don't a little spring and check ball in them, and you don't want it to corrode. There you can see the check ball in that one, maybe I don't know. Anyway, it just helps protect the fitting. I did put the drain plug back in the sump, and yeah, the fill is where the crankcase breather. This is the intake for the crankcase ventilation system. This car has a road draft tube, and so you got to clean this periodically. I never clean it. It never gets dirty, and you know, I don't drive it down dirt roads or really dusty areas, so I don't worry about it a heck of a lot. But anyway, I'm going to put a little bit of this in, then I'm going to put the zinc in, then I'm going to put a little bit more of this in, And I put a little oil in the filter, not a lot, because when I install a filter, I end up getting oil everywhere because you got to tilt a little bit to reach up in there to get it in there. And I did check the oil in the gearbox and in the axle, and they're both good. So right now it's just top end, finished putting the oil in it. Oilers on the generator and the distributor, and I've shown those plenty of times, so I doubt I'll show them. But anyway, I'm going to put the zinc stuff I got in the engine. Let me get this opened up and dumped in, and we'll finish it up. This zinc stuff here is like syrup, so we'll put that in and let the bottle just sit there and drain out for a little bit. See, it's kind of thick. Prefer to find the oil with the zinc additive in it. I used to be able to buy it for the Galaxy, but I ran 1030 in that. This because of the mileage on the, the Galaxy, the engine was all rebuilt. This has got 200,000 miles on it, so it's a little worn. All right, let me let that drain out a little bit, and then I'll finish putting the oil in it, and then we'll go for a short ride again. And I'll try and show you the oil as I pour it out of the drain pan into the empty jug. And you can see why I use cardboard. You're gonna spill oil when you're changing oil. Whoops, air bubble. There's no getting around it, so I always put cardboard under the car. When I work on it, if I spill oil or if it drips oil out of that oil pan and doesn't leave a stain on the floor. It doesn't really drip too much. It just gets everything oily, the oil pan and the bell housing and stuff get a little oily from those seal leaks that I showed. So there we go. That was the drain oil out of the crankcase. You can see, it doesn't look too bad. All right, I'll show you one other thing I made too that I think you'll get a kick out of. Was this, just took a gallon jug and cut the top off, and then I got some hardware cloth and put a little wire mesh and set the oil filter in there. And it drains out so I don't throw an oil filter away with oil in it. Last thing I do is I set the air in the tires. So I'm going to go around, and remember, cars have 5 tires. They don't have 4. So make sure you get your 5th tire and check it. There's nothing more annoying than if you get a flat tire and then find you have a flat spare. So check your spare at the same time you check your air in all your tires. Now when I put this over in the storage unit, I'll pump the tires up to about 35 psi for the winter, but typically I run about 26, 28 pounds in them, and I think I'm just going to leave them around 28 pounds because it's going to be in the garage here where I can, if I need to check them, I can. I'm keeping this car here this winter, and it'll be the first time since I've lived here that I've kept it here for the winter, so I'm going to, like I say, give the car do a little work on it. I haven't really done much to this car in the past 35 years anyway, so wouldn't hurt to give it a little TLC here and there. That paint, like I say, is 40 years old. Still looks pretty darn good. See the reflection in it still. And another thing too, since this prostate surgery, yeah, it's a little uncomfortable getting under the car and changing the oil and stuff. It's, it's a little difficult, but I managed it. And another note on the prostate, I saw the surgeon Monday of this week, and he stated my PSA is now 0.09, and when it gets to 0.1, they're going to start radiation. So I go at the end of October for another blood test. And I had my physical in the beginning of September, and it was 0.08, so I suspect by the end of October it's going to be 0.1. So I suspect I'm going to have to start radiation treatments Probably in November, December, I'm not really sure. We'll talk to the radiologist once we get to that point and find out what we're going to do. But it's inevitable I'm going to have radiation. It's just a matter of when. He wanted me to heal up as much as possible before they started radiation, because radiation kills your good cells and your bad cells, the cancerous cells or whatever, but the good ones grow back, the cancerous ones don't. So, you know, the radiologist just wanted me to try and go a year. I had the surgery in March of this past March of this year. And I don't think we're going to be able to wait until March to have the radiation. But like I say, we'll talk to the radiologist about it. So anyway, I'm going to set the air in the tires. Actually, I'll crank it up. I haven't started it yet. And like I say, I put some oil in the filter, but I didn't fill it up. So the oil light may take a moment to go out, and the tappets may click a little bit for, you know, until it's run a little bit. But I don't give it any gas. I just turn the key and start it and let it just idle dead slow until the oil pressure comes up. And we got an oil light off already. Alright, I'm just gonna go around, check the air in the tires, and then we'll go for a little ride. Give it a little gas, get the oil pressure up, check the oil filter for leaks. Yeah, you can hear it squeal a bell. The engine's got some power. It squeals a bell if you get it into it, and the belt's pretty snug. I think it's just, you know, they just used too small of a belt. These performance engines had an idler pulley. If you had the tri-power solid lift cam, they had an idler pulley down here and ran a second belt, so it wouldn't squeal. Yeah, it sounds good. No oil and filter. It had a lifter taken. It just went out a little bit, but it kind of went away. Okay, let me set the air in the tires and go for a short ride. I just oiled the oiler on the distributor. That's the, show up there, a little oiler right here. That's the oiler for the distributor, and then like I say, there's one on the front and back of the generator. And I oiled these already. I didn't oil the distributor one, but I gotta check the oil in the engine since I changed oil, so I'm gonna do that right now, and then throw the air cleaner back on, and we'll, like I say, go for a ride. All the tires are right on the money, 28 pounds. I keep the spare tire at 32 psi. Let me see if I can set this camera somewhere here so we can see the dipstick. I let it idle the whole time while I was checking the air in the tires, so it warmed the oil up so it drained back in the sump a little quicker. Check your oil when the engine's hot or when it's cold. Don't just start it and let it run a minute and shut it off and check it. You'll get an inaccurate reading. I don't know if it shows up on there or not, but it's right on the full mark. So we're all good. And I checked the power steering and the brake fluid already too. The power steering doesn't read on the stick. I just look down in the can, because if I put it to the full mark on the stick even hot, it runs out all over the pump. So I just leave it where I filled. Once it got to where it stays to where it is, now I know I take the cap off, look in there, it's always there at that level. So that I just leave it at that level and never add to it or anything. But yeah, it's been a long time since I've done anything to this engine. I can't remember the last time I've done a tune-up. The plug's probably been in it for 30 years, and cap, rotor, and wires probably as long. I think I converted it from points to Pertronics about maybe 35 years ago. Maybe that, I think that was the last time I put a cap rotor and plug wires on it. And I don't think I've ever changed the plugs since then too. But as long as it runs good, I just kind of leave it alone. You know, I mean, starts right out and runs pretty darn good. All right, let me get the air cleaner back on. We'll go for a short ride. The last oil change on this car was September 12th. And I've put 1,400 miles on it since then. Today's the 29th of September 22. So September 12th, 21 to September 29th, 22, put 1,400 miles on it. So anyway, it's kind of clouded over and turned crummy looking out, but I just want to go for a short little run. Maybe we'll top it off with gas, and then if I don't drive it again, it'll be fine for the winter here. If I, you know, I might still take it out maybe tomorrow evening, Friday evening. If it's nice, I'll go do a lap on Woodward in it. We'll see. I mean, like I say, I don't think it'll hurt if it has a couple hundred miles on the oil to sit for the winter. I just don't want it to sit with that, you know, oil from the whole summer cruising. You get, especially on carbureted cars, you know, the choke, you get a little extra blow by raw fuel from down the cylinders. These don't run as clean as fuel injected cars, and it's got a road draft tube with an open, you know, open crankcase ventilation system. So oil changing, frequent oil changing on these old cars is important. You can't let them go 5,000–10,000 miles. That's why I do this car once a year or every 2,000 or 3,000 miles. Usually every 2,000 miles or once a year, and haven't put over 2,000 miles a year on it, and I can't remember when, so I just do it once a year. But anyway, there we go. Let's go for a short drive. Cruiser out on Woodward. Well, it is a Thursday afternoon, so obviously, you know, it's kind of crummy looking out, and it's cold. Alright, I'm going to turn the camera off so I can drive, seeing there's really heavy traffic, and take the car back home and wrap it up. Well, I'm at the Ford dealer. I dropped the Escape off here for some service, so it's finished. I just paid for it and came with the Bel Air to pay for it, and they're washing it, and then I'm gonna just park it here over on the side there until later when I get somebody to drive me up to get it. And so anyway, there we go. We're getting the, hopefully it'll be all cleaned up. They always wash it after they change the oil and stuff. But I wonder what these new, I bet you I could sell my pickup for what I paid for it. I don't even see stickers on these. Yeah, might be a used truck, although I think they're used car lots up the road. But yeah, I imagine that I'm not going to be buying anything new in the near future. Let's just see what this is, F-150. Oh, about $60,000. No thank you. I'll keep the 08 F-150 going probably for another 10–15 years anyway, and if I replace it, I'll probably end up having to buy a used one. But I'm looking at Broncos, thinking of replacing the Escape, but no, I'm gonna drive the Escape. It's got 130,000 miles on it now. I'm gonna drive it 200,000, and if it, you know, those cars have rear rust issues, and it's just starting to bubble a little bit. If it rots out over the winter, I'll just take the body hammer and knock all the rust out, weld some new metal in, and paint it up. So I'll fix any rust that might occur on it in the future, but for now, just going to continue to use it. There we go, all washed up. I don't see the porter. I'll have to get the key if he didn't leave the key in it. Yeah, no key. I'll go in and get the key. Guess need to put some gas in it. Well, fuel lights on. All right, I gotta see if I can squeeze it down that driveway over here. I'm not sure how we get into it, so I'm gonna turn you off. There's a driveway right over there. Well, that's gonna be it for this video. If you like the video, definitely hit the like button. It certainly helps in getting more viewers and making a little more money and more subscribers. If you like my channel, that 348 engine that we just changed the oil in, click on that icon, it'll subscribe you. And thank you for watching my videos.